everybody. Welcome back to another conversation of As It Goes. I'm Lydia. I hope you're having a great week. Today's episode is, I think, the ultimate epitome of the perspective that we generally bring to topics on As It Goes and with Reself, which is just the nice, big picture, grounded perspective, right? So today we're talking about the power of embracing death to truly live. And we'll get into it, but especially culturally in the US and in, I would gather to say Western culture in general, from my experience, is that death is something that is weird and not really talked about and try to, be avoided, not thought about, la la la. And right? So here's our usual perspective. It's a part of life, right? Birth implies death. To live implies we will die. And I want to say, obviously, before we get into this, that I want to hold space to be really respectful to anyone that has lost a loved one or really struggles with this topic. It's not to be disrespectful. I completely understand and can empathize with how difficult it is to lose someone close to you or to have someone close to you struggling with their health in whatever form that may be. And so I definitely want to say that because obviously death touches us all. And part of going through life and growing up is the experience of losing the people we love, having the people we love pass away, pass on. And we're going to talk about this from a certain perspective, which is not necessarily the perspective of grief and that experience. And I just want to say that up front. What we're really talking about is on the individual level, how having a conscious, intentional, thoughtful, reflective, and accepting relationship with our own mortality and our own death can actually really positively impact how we live and how we live fully, completely, consciously, intentionally. And what it means to us to experience this life. This is something that I thought about when I was probably in, the later years of middle school, probably 7th or 8th grade. I was going through a really hard period trying to navigate who I actually want to be, trying to reconcile with, mistakes I was making and, how could I come out of this struggle I had been experiencing as I try to navigate who am I really and how do I really want to live. I remember sitting down one night, this was by the time I had started writing in a notebook. I just wrote down, if I die, how do I want to be remembered? What do I want to be remembered for? And as soon as I did that, and as soon as we do that, we come face to face with how am I meeting and acting in alignment with those intentions, how I want to be remembered, and what I want to be remembered for, and where is there room to grow into that? Where is there room to give more energy towards that? Where am I antagonizing and compromising who I want to be and show up as in the world? With the pandemic, right? Even for myself, when we think about what does it mean for us as an individual to live a fulfilling life, and we define those things for ourselves, again, we come face to face with, how am I not doing that right now? And how can I rearrange my priorities and prioritize to make sure that I'm actually meeting those things? So, for example, if one of my priorities is, I understand this might be the only life I have, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, I want to live this experience to the fullest. It matters a lot to me that I see as much of the world as possible, that I gain a worldly perspective, that I experience different cultures, different experiences, different perspectives, meet as many incredibly different people as possible and connect with people. If I understand all that, and then I see, well, that's not been reflected in my experience up until this point, and I see maybe my excuses, and like, again, speaking from my personal experience, right? Because for me, this is a big one. So if I see that, okay, well, I can't afford to travel the way I imagine I want to right now. Okay, totally fair, totally reasonable. However, where am I spending money that all could be saved towards traveling at the capacity I could travel at right now at this point in time in this stage of my life? You see what I'm saying? And so it really grounds us in what we value and what we want, and helps us to make those changes to really act in alignment with that. And so that's one of the huge, I think, benefits from doing this. Another thing is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, it's called memento mori. It's essentially a practice of remembering your death daily. And about a year ago, my aunt gave me a journal that she had just come across, and when I went to visit her, she gave me this memento mori journal, and it was such a special synchronicity that I knew this was something that I needed in my life. And recently, I've been using it and writing it in it every day, every night before I go to bed. And I feel the benefits during the day. I feel more connected, present, and at ease, actually, which I think might be a common misconception about, what it might feel like to think about our own death often or daily. Because, in the journal, right, or in your own experience, whatever you might choose to do with this information in applying it, the journal has some quotes about death or on the subject of memento mori or whatever. Sometimes I'll use those. Other times I'll just look at my day and, think about anything that might have happened that I could then, apply to that big picture of like, what am I doing with my life? What is the meaning that I'm creating for my life? Or, any philosophical thoughts I might have on the subject, and just roll with those and see where we go. But I think that, to that point again, it really actually creates this sort of ease and discernment, truly, with what I'm doing, how I'm acting, how I'm perceiving things, to the best of my ability, in terms of that grounded perspective, which all of us, it's so easy to forget, right? And again, culturally speaking, certainly not something at the forefront of conversation, is that our lives can be taken from us at any moment, at any time. It's not guaranteed that we live until tomorrow, that we live until the next hour. And I think especially in, modern Western society, there are so many conveniences and comforts and quote unquote progress that puts us at ease in that sense about the uncertainty of the continuation of our existence and allows us to forget our morality. And I think that especially in my own experience, right? When I forget my morality and I lose sight of that perspective that we're talking about here, I feel way more ungrounded, directionless, uncertain, disconnected with myself and my values and what I truly want in life. And it becomes so much easier to be swept up in materialism and, comparison or whatever it is. So embracing and accepting the reality of our mortality and death as an uncertain factor, whether our health is good or not, whatever. I think that this practice really takes the fear away, that lack of control sense that comes from perhaps at the beginning about thinking about, I could die at any moment. What am I going to do about that? Because it empowers, like I'm saying, our acting and controlling what we can control, which is our own actions and what we are doing in each moment. I was talking to someone about this subject a few days ago, and she brought my attention to some people trying to revolutionize the way that we think about death, especially in the States. And she told me about these cafes called death cafes, where people go and chat about death. And I'll put their link in the description. The death cafes define their objective as, quote, to increase awareness of death with a view of helping people make the most of their finite lives, end quote. I think that's really cool because I think twofold, right? It's one thing to practice this on your own, and it's one thing to either try a memento mori practice for a month or, a week. It's one thing to think about these things, reflect on them, and, adjust accordingly in your own life, but then to bring it into communion, as in getting together with people in a community that shares this common value of the experience and talking about it, that's really powerful and really healing because, like I said, culturally, right? Not common for everyone to go around striking up conversation about, hey, yeah, you and me, we could die tomorrow. We can die in an hour. So, how are you making the most of your life? What are you up to these days? Whatever. That's just completely out of the norm. That speaks to, if you're the friend that's into all this, bring it up because it really, it really can change someone's life. If we all think about this and we invite people into the conversation and have a conversation with them, and that is so healing and evolving for both people, all people involved in that exchange. And it can be really powerful. Another one that she mentioned was Lantern, which is, again, linked in the description, about being more prepared for death and is a self-described, quote, source of guidance for navigating life before and after death, end quote. Lantern was more from the perspective of death can catch us so off guard, and then it's on the responsibility of all those grieving to, assume all of the orchestration around whatever. Again, depending on cultural traditions and etc. But this idea of being prepared for death memento mori, remember your death. Having and navigating that aspect and I just think that is really cool. So I wanted to share it so you guys can check it out. So as you see with the death cafes and with Lantern, these companies confront the head-on common notion of I don't want to think about my death. Of course, I can totally respect that. Right? No one, realistically speaking, no one really wants to think about that in the sense that we don't want to lose this experience of life quite yet. But if we're mindful enough of how we're living, then we can embrace death when the time comes as being able to detach and let go from this life experience like a sigh of relief in the sense of, I've done what I needed to do. I'm happy with the life I lived. And it's not always that clean and easy, right? There's a huge uncertainty factor here. And that's the point. By embracing, accepting, and remembering this fact of life, it keeps us aligned to what matters most to us and making sure that what we're doing reflects that. When you take that control of that conversation, like I said, it no longer has power over you because you're actually thinking about it consciously and intentionally and saying, okay, but given that it's not guaranteed that I'll live, and given all these things, do I not want to think about my death because I don't really want to think about how I'm not actually living my life in alignment with what I really want it to be? Or what is it? You know what I mean? Because I think, again, personally speaking, that can be really difficult to confront ourselves with. And I can totally, speak to that from the first time I did this when I was, 13 or 14, and even recently, it really forces you and me to think about what are the grudges that I'm still holding on to that I need to just let go? How am I really creating more suffering in my life day to day that by remembering death and remembering how precious and finite life is, I can just let that all go? How am I contributing to my own suffering and to the suffering of others? And how can I actually be a source of healing and relief to everyone that I touch? That's where I'm coming from, because if we don't accept death as an inevitable reality, it breeds fear and anxiety, lack of control, all these things. And there's just so much empowerment to thinking about that, to live life to its fullest. My two closest friends recently lost loved ones, and both of them individually reflected on how the experience made them want to live fully, to eliminate all that doesn't matter and just go after what matters and act in alignment with that. And, that's what we're talking about here. But I think the other part of what we're talking about is that we don't need to always touch death in that experience to have the impact that that reflection on death in our morality can actually have. I was speaking with someone the other day. Her coworker, an old coworker of hers, passed away. She was saying after being at the wake and everything, she was just reflecting on it really is the impact that you have on people. And it's so true, right? It comes down to our impact on others and our actions. And the more we consider how finite our lives really are, how precious they are, and how uncertain and unguaranteed it is, we can really bring intentionality and align our impact on others and our actions with our values. And we can make sure and hold ourselves accountable to that. Because, that's the other thing. Like I said, doing this memento mori practice that I've been doing for the past few weeks, I said it put myself at ease, right? And I also said it makes me think about every interaction I have and think about how can I leave this best? What if I don't see this person ever again? What if I pass on? What if this other person passes on? What's really important here? And that is, I think, the biggest gift of this, of embracing death to truly live in accordance with our values, our authenticity, and our personal mission, meaning, and what impact we want to have on others in the world. There's some food for thought for the week. I thought I'd keep this pretty short because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Challenge for the week is to write down, sit one night when you can catch a moment for yourself and really be present, and record yourself on your phone, whatever. Reflect on, how do I want to be remembered? What does it mean to me to truly live? What impact do I want to have on others? And look at what you write. Just write. Don't try to control your answers in terms of how you're living right now. Just write. And then think about, what are 3 things I can do each day to make sure I'm meeting what I wrote down on that page. Okay? I'm going to do this too because, like I said, I have definitely been realizing some things that I just need to let go because they're just not in alignment with the impact I want to have on others and what truly matters when you put death at the forefront of reality as part of if we're doing the double side of the coin, one side is life, one side is death. That's the coin we're here with on Earth in this human experience. So, happy thinking. Enjoy that little exercise. I hope you enjoyed our conversation here today. If you did and you're not following us on socials, as always, you can follow us on Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, whatever floats your boat. We also have a bunch of different playlists on Spotify, so you can check those out as well. Links are in the description. And if you're interested in this topic and you're not following us on Instagram, we're going to be posting all themed content on this subject on Instagram this week. So check it out. Make sure to follow. And keep your eye out for our Mindset Pre-Launch Preview, which is coming soon. All right. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.